Hey everybody, welcome to Underdog TV's mock draft. Now, we have not hit NFL free agency yet. A lot of stuff is going to shake out. A lot of waivings are going to shake out. So this is just the first of many series of mock drafts that we're going to do. Before we get started, please everybody like and subscribe. Subscribe's the important part. Not only are we diving head first into the draft, but we're also going to be doing free agency analysis, certainly fantasy football analysis. So we're going to be with you all off season long. Subscribe, like, share. We appreciate it. We're going to go 1 through 32. You're going to get every single team picking, at least in the first round in this draft here. So number 1, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. Will Joe Burrow try to use his leverage to not be picked in the first round? I don't think it matters. I think Cincinnati, if they like Joe Burrow, will take him. He is who I'm going to go with for the Cincinnati Bengals at this point. I believe Burrow will be a Bengal. And, look, Joe Burrow, you can do a lot worse than the skill players that the Cincinnati Bengals have amassed over the last few years. I like the young receivers. I like the mix in the running back. They do need a line. They do need some defensive support, but you could do worse there. Number 2, new defensive regime coming in there. Ron Rivera having some experience with Julius Peppers in his defense earlier in his Carolina Panthers tenure. They know, Jack Del Rio knows what an edge rusher can do. Chase Young will be the pick there, although I would consider, if I'm Washington, I would consider Tua Tagovailoa. Now, look, they have Haskins. I know the book is still out on him. I would consider it. If you're a Redskins fan, you think Haskins is the guy, fine, but you got to consider a top quarterback. Number 3, the Detroit Lions. I do have them taking Tua at number 3. Now, look, I think realistically this pick could probably be traded. If you're Detroit and you want to roll with Stafford and the way he was playing last year, I think you can definitely roll with Stafford and feel good about it. This pick will be traded if they're not going to take him because the pick is too valuable. And after, kind of think these top 2 picks, and if you don't need a quarterback, especially after Chase Young is gone, I think there's basically value to be had elsewhere. Now, there's talk about Miami moving up. I don't think that's going to happen. Detroit, once again, I'm going to say Tua goes to this pick. I don't think it's the Lions, but if it is, hey, if you pick that high in the draft, you don't have very many chances to get a top-line quarterback like that in the draft. Number 4, the New York Giants, new coaching staff going in there. I think they're going to take defensive tackle Derek Brown from Auburn. You could go a number of different ways here, but I think the Giants need beef along that defensive line. I think that's the way they're going to go. Number 5, the Miami Dolphins. Everybody I see in the mock drafts, they're either trying to trade up for Tua or they're going to get the quarterback out of Oregon. I don't think the Miami Dolphins are going to do that. For many reasons, I'll cover this in another video, but long story short, in Chan Gailey, the new offensive coordinator's last few years coaching, whether it's head coach or offensive coordinator, who has his quarterback been? Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's a weird stat. It's very weird, but look it up. He's very comfortable with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Miami has so many holes. Actually, at this point, with Herbert still being available, I would say trade this pick if you can. There's a lot of help you could give the offensive and defensive line, but if they keep this pick, I'm going to say offensive tackle Jedrick Wills out of Iowa. Number 6, the LA Chargers. I think they'll take their quarterback here from Oregon. Now, look. Phillip Rivers moving along. Are they going to give one of these quarterbacks on their roster a shot? Yeah, sure. Tyrod Taylor is interesting, but is he the long-term starter? I don't know. I would say if I was a betting man, and I am, I would say Tyrod Taylor would probably be the starting quarterback in the week 1 of this NFL season coming up. But who knows? There's a lot of off-season. But either way, I don't think you move past. And maybe the Chargers move up to number 3 with the Lions. I mean, I think that's very possible. In fact, if I'm the Chargers, I probably look into that strongly. Number 7, the Carolina Panthers, new coaching staff, new college-based coaching staff going in. Look, I think Cam Newton is actually an interesting fit for the system that Rule is going to be putting together in Carolina. So I'm not going to be one of those guys that's saying Carolina's going to be pushing hard for a quarterback. I actually think Carolina's going to start to fill some of that other defensive need. Their defense was bad last year. Defensive back Jeff Okudah out of Ohio State. Number 8, the Arizona Cardinals. Now, look, no wide receivers come off the board yet. I think Kingsbury would be very, very tempted to go with a wide receiver, but this is still Keim's organization. I think they're going to help the offensive line, help Kyler Murray out with another offensive tackle. Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. Again, very, very, very tempted to take one of the wide receivers here. For now, let's go with offensive line. I think that the Cardinals would be wise to do that. Number 9 on my list here is the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Isaiah Simmons linebacker out of Clemson. Jay Gruden is taking over the offensive coordinator role in that organization. I was thinking about giving them one of the wide receivers to help Gardner Minshew or Nick Foles, and I don't think it's a slam dunk that Gardner Minshew is going to be the starter there. The Grudens, both Jay and John, like older quarterbacks, so I think Foles is going to have a shot. I would say, again, betting man, I'm going to take Gardner Minshew to start the week one for the Jaguars. I don't think they help the offensive side of the ball. I think they go defense and start to restock. You could go cornerback there, but I don't love the cornerbacks available at this point, so that's why I went linebacker. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns. Becton, Louisville, offensive tackle. You got to give that team some offensive support, and I think the new coaching staff and the analytics people are going to agree with that. Number 11, the New York Jets. Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama, wide receiver. I do think that. Again, I don't love the talent. You could go defensive end. You could go linebacker at this point. But I think Sam Darnold, especially with Robbie Anderson being a free agent, I think you got to give him some weapons. So I like them taking a receiver. And also the Las Vegas Raiders. I like them taking a receiver. CeeDee Lamb, Oklahoma. Whichever receiver there that they have highly rated, I think they'll take. You got to give Carr a top line number one wide receiver. Then you move Terrell Williams, basically that secondary role. You got Hunter Renfrow coming in the slot. That was the missing piece last year, in addition to some pass defense, which we'll maybe cover later in the draft for the Raiders. So, I like wide receiver there. Number 13, the Indianapolis Colts. AJ Epinesa out of Iowa. The Colts, if they're not going to move up for a quarterback and they're not going to sign a quarterback, you could basically say they're going to sit pat and help that defense. Now, you could go wide receiver. I think probably the better of the wide receivers this time have moved along. If they do like another wide receiver, you could give them another weapon there opposite of T.Y. Hilton. But remember, they did draft Paris Campbell relatively early last year, just never really got on the field due to health concerns. So, or health injuries, I should say, not concerns. Let's see here. Tampa Bay, number 14, linebacker Chisholm out of LSU. Number 15, the Denver Broncos, defensive tackle. Now, here's the thing. Fangio, they had a lot of injuries on that defensive line last year. That kind of derailed the season, but Denver finished really well coming out of there. You could give them another wide receiver in the first round, but I don't think they will do that. I think they will slant defense and defensive line depth, so that's why I like the defensive tackle at number 15. Number 16, the Atlanta Falcons. They do like edge rushers, but I'm going to give them linebacker Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. I think the offense is set. I think they're going to put up points. They need help on the defense. Now, Raheem Morris has been promoted into the defensive coordinator role, coming from the defensive backs. Maybe they go for a cornerback and all that, but I think their front seven is really kind of what's hurting in Atlanta. So, again, linebacker there. Number 17, the Dallas Cowboys. They will take, I believe, a wide receiver, Henry Ruggs, who many think is the best receiver in the draft. Certainly, you can make that argument. We'll see how the draft offseason shakes out. I like him, and especially with the free agency, having another guy to go, Michael Gallup. Now, look, if they re-sign, all their free agents, hey, maybe they go to a different position here, but they need to give a quarterback, especially if they sign Dak. They're going to probably sign somebody for big money there. If they sign Dak for over $30 million a season, they need cheaper wide receivers. So I think that'd be a great help for them. So Amari Cooper, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? We'll see. Number 18, Miami Dolphins. Now their second pick. Now certainly they're going to draft a quarterback now, right? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to go offensive line a second time. Take Josh Jones out of Houston. 2 offensive linemen, rebuild that team from the inside out. I think that's what Miami has to do. And again, if I'm Miami, I'm looking to trade back, and I'm looking to add like 5 people to the offensive and defensive line combined. Early in the draft, you got to restock the shelves there. Number 19, the LV, the Las Vegas Raiders. Cornerback C.J. Henderson. Again, you help the wide receivers. I think that was a big hole, and you got to help the defensive back group as well for the Raiders. So I think they get some help. C.J. Henderson out of Florida. Number 20, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the pick they acquired for trading Patrick Ramsey. I'm sure they would take C.J. Henderson if he's there. I'm sure they would love that pick. However, I do think that they'll go offensive tackle Andrew Thomas in Georgia. You can go a lot of different ways for the Jaguars, but they have talent. Don't let that record, and don't let, they didn't really compete too much last year. They weren't a serious competing team for a while. Don't let that fool you. I mean, they're in a division that, depending on how the offseason shakes out, they could very easily be in the mix next year. This is a better than advertised division. We got the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans in there. The Indianapolis Colts, if they move to 7 playoff teams, look, you could get 3 playoff teams from this division next year if they do. The CBA does go to 7 playoff teams, per conference there. Let's see here. 21, Eagles, T. Higgins, wide receiver, Clemson. The Eagles traditionally don't draft wide receiver in the first round, okay? Maybe even Freddie Mitchell might have been the last wide receiver the Eagles drafted, I think, in the first round. But they need receiver, especially the depth there. Are they going to have Jackson coming back? Yeah. Is Alshon Jeffrey going to be back? We'll see. But they need some depth at wide receiver. They were hurting there last year. Now, I think Philadelphia Eagles are going to be a very, very interesting team going in there. Yeah, they could maybe find a defensive back, the safety, who actually have number 22 Buffalo Bills taking Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. That could be a great pick for Philadelphia because Philadelphia's passing defense has been kind of the Achilles heel of this team. But like I said, I think Philly go with that wide receiver. Buffalo, at this point, I really like this team. And with T. Higgins going a few picks before, I don't think they'll go receiver, although you can make that argument certainly, and I wouldn't begrudge you that argument. And maybe, I might take a receiver later. But yeah, I don't know. I think Buffalo will fortify, not fortify because their defense is already pretty darn good anyway. I think they'll add some depth to that defense. Number 23, is this going to be where Eason goes? Quarterback for the Patriots. Replace Tom Brady. Is Tom Brady going to sign with him? Look, I think Tom Brady will be back. I think that this organization knows that they need to maximize. They don't have a long Super Bowl window, right? The spotlight is starting to fade in this organization, at least at the quarterback position. Assuming they bring Tom Brady back, I believe this is going to be a pick to help this organization. Is it going to be a wide receiver? No, I don't believe so. I think this is going to be center/guard, interior offensive line help. Cesar Ruiz, or maybe it's Cesar, but out of Michigan. I think that the interior offensive line was an issue all season. I think it's one of the key problems, along with not having a number one, a quote-unquote, I guess, deep threat. Julian Edelman is a number one receiver, but you need a deep threat. With Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon both leaving throughout the season, Gronkowski retiring late in the season, you can make the argument for tight ends. But I don't think a tight end here is warranted at this pick. Maybe the Patriots trade back and get some more picks and try to draft for need. But this is a pretty big need, and I think he's a pretty good player. Number 24, the New Orleans Saints. I like wide receiver Justin Jefferson out of Auburn here. Look, they need somebody to take. Look, even with the pressure, Mike Thomas is still incredible, but they need another receiver there. Traquan Smith hasn't been the answer. I know he's been injured. Kirkwood was injured last year. Ginn is a nice piece, but he's more of a, take a deep shot when the defense isn't really looking, when Peyton and the coaching staff there is set up that play. Another wide receiver here, I think, is what the Saints need to make a deep run in the playoffs. Number 25, the Minnesota Vikings. Patrick Queen out of LSU. There are going to be free agents. We don't know how the offseason is going to shake off, but you can do a lot worse than adding basically a signal caller, a leader of a defense in the middle of that team. Plus, you have the Packers, who are going more towards a run-based offense. It helps you compete internally. You're also going to have to compete with the San Francisco 49ers, the New Orleans Saints, the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of teams in this conference can run the ball well. Philadelphia, they don't have a top-flight fantasy runner, but Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard, that 1-2 punch, that's pretty big. They need help and they need depth. Maybe not necessarily at this position, but I think they'll fortify the defensive depth. Number 26, the Miami Dolphins, their third first-round pick. Do they take another offensive lineman? No, I think they add their first defensive lineman of the draft and defensive tackle Ross Blacklock out of TCU. Look, the Dolphins, they need help everywhere, like I've been saying. They could trade back this pick as well. But I want to see at least 2 offensive linemen, at least 2 defensive linemen in the first 2 rounds. That's what I want to see if I'm a Dolphins fan and a Dolphins organization. If you want to draft Tua early, by all means, go for it. But every other pick needs to be on the lines, in my opinion. 27, Seattle Seahawks, Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State. Adding a defensive end, you know how Seattle likes those defensive linemen. I like the offense. I like the wide receivers. You could add another maybe offensive lineman here, but I think the value is at defensive end. Number 28, the Baltimore Ravens. They always draft well. I think they add more depth to their defensive line. And Justin Madubuike, Texas A&M. Number 29, the Tennessee Titans. And the reason I'm adding these 2 picks together is because they're brutal to pronounce. Noah Igbenogany. So you got Madubuike and Igbenogany in consecutive picks. The Ravens, they're just going to fortify and add depth. You could say maybe another wide receiver there, but again, I don't love the depth at this point. Tennessee, I know they had some injuries, but if they can sign Tannehill, okay, that's a big thing. If they can sign Henry, make sure they come back. Add to that defense. And passing defense kind of hurt them late in the season. And remember, you're competing essentially with the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Number 30, the Green Bay Packers wide receiver Laviska Shenault. It's like Chantal. Shenault. Out of Colorado. I've been saying this for about 2 years now. The only guy that can create separation on this team for Green Bay right now is Davante Adams. Now, I liked what Lazard did kind of later in the year, but Geronimo Allison, the other guy, Valdez-Scantling, they're not creating separation, man, and they got to have somebody on the outside, because the more on the outside, on the other side of Davante Adams, the more threat that you can have there, the more it opens up Davante Adams on his side as well. He's already being utilized, but Davante Adams is a beast. You got to give him some help. Same with, like I said before, Mike Thomas in New Orleans. Same with even DeAndre Hopkins with Houston. So I like that there. I think this is a need pick. I don't know that this is a value pick at this point, but we'll see how the offseason shakes out. We're into the Super Bowl teams now. Number 31, the San Francisco 49ers. Well, Grant Delpit drops all the way, safety out of LSU. If he drops to San Francisco there, San Francisco does not have a lot of weaknesses. So that's how these teams continue to stay good and stay relevant. Like Baltimore, I think you get great depth there with Matt Ibuke. I think that Grant Delpit, I think, is a great pick for San Francisco. Is it a need? I wouldn't say it's a need, but it's a depth pick, and they just get better and better and better. You could go basically any single position. I think they're going to draft whoever is highest on their board. It could be interior offensive line help, maybe. It could be, but do they need it? No. They don't need a running back. You could maybe say wide receiver, but I like Jalen Hurd coming back off injury. I think that's going to be a good one. And then lastly, in the first round, Kansas City Chiefs. I was thinking Kansas City Chiefs, interior offensive lineman. Who would they pick? But you know what? Running back DeAndre Swift in my mock draft has dropped this far. Can you imagine this team? They're set it in the passing game, and they just won a Super Bowl with the offensive line that they have. You could pick an edge rusher, okay? You could pick that because, a lot of teams are going to be losing. So maybe you pick a ball hawk at safety. You pick a cornerback that can, pick passes off, right? Because teams are going to be trying to throw the ball late in the game. You could do any of these things. But if you add DeAndre Swift, and I don't even mind the what's his face there, the ex-Miami Dolphins running back that was hurt for most of the year, Damian Williams. I don't even mind him so much there. When he's healthy, I think he's good. But you're talking about adding DeAndre Swift, the best running back in his draft, to the best team in the NFL. And that was a key weakness for them throughout the years. They couldn't really get consistent running yards. Some of that is the offensive line. Yes, that would help them. But man, you add this piece to that offense. That's a crazy offense. So I don't think he'll drop far. Now, Andy Reid, his MO is not to draft a running back early. I think he can find one that he likes later in the draft. They usually go like defensive line, the Andy Reid drafts, or some of these kind of blue collar meat and potatoes type players, and that could very well happen. But it's hard for me, the way my mock draft is shaken out for Kansas City with that offensive firepower to pass on the one thing that could make that offense even better. Man, that would be quite a team. That would be so fun to watch. If you're an NFL fan, if you hate the Chiefs, you hate that pick probably. But there you go. So there you go. There's my mock draft. Please, once again, please like, subscribe. Subscribe's the big one. We have a ton of content coming out. It's just going to keep coming out quicker. Share all that stuff. Check us out on another mock draft and some other NFL offseason commentary. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you again soon.